Greetings and welcome to the Department of Tangents podcast, a wrap-up of this year's Women in Comedy Festival with new music from the Smoking Flowers. I'm your host, Nick Zano. The Women in Comedy Festival is one of my favorite annual events in Boston and has been since its more humble beginnings in 2009, when most of the shows were at one venue at ImprovBoston over 4 days. It has expanded in some way every year, and this year brought in some big guns from HBO, Starz, ABC, CBS, NBC, Audible, Disney, and all over the industry to scout some of the amazing talent, 115 acts in all. I bounced around to different shows all 5 days of the festival and tried to catch people at after parties or between venues. I got 4 on site, which makes up this week's episode, and 1 other by phone with headliner Emma Willmann, which will be next week's episode. I interviewed 3 stand-up comedians and 1 filmmaker for this week's episode: Nina Daniels, Will Martin, Tina Frimmel, and Dawn Smith. I'll give them each their own introduction as they come up, and stay tuned after the conversation for new music from the Smoking Flowers, and watch the Department of Tangents site at www.departmentoftangents.com Monday morning for an interview with the band. We'll start out with Nina Daniels, who calls herself a triple minority in comedy, a black woman who plays the cello. I've seen musical instruments in stand-up acts before, a lot of guitars, a piano or 2, Henny Youngman had his violin, but never a cello. That presents its own set of advantages and problems. This was the first interview of the week after I saw Daniels perform on the Nerd Up Showcase. You can find out more about her and her web series, The Model's Diet, on ninadaniels.com. So, you play cello.
I do.
And do stand-up comedy.
I do.
How did these 2 things wind up coming together?
I started stand-up, and I started talking about the cello, ironically. Because I don't think I thought I was going to be doing cello jokes when I started writing, but, it's very organic when you start writing. I guess it just comes from the things that tortured you in your life.
Right, but I
was just playing the cello. So I started writing, and then people kept asking me, like, "Hey, are you gonna play the?" They kept expecting me to play the cello, and I was like, "No, I'm not gonna bring that dead body with me. I don't want to carry that around." And then eventually, my manager was like, "You should really try it. Just try a set with the cello." Brought it out, and I was like, "Oh, this could be." Then I haven't put it back since.
Did you hate your manager for suggesting that?
Yes, because now I'm carrying a body with me everywhere I go. You don't understand what it's like traveling with a cello. It's a nightmare.
You called it traveling around with your best friend's dead body on your back.
With your best friend's dead body, yes.
Were you still actively playing cello, or did you have to go back?
Well, ironically, when I went to school, I would play in like different. I went to theater school. I went to Brown, so I would play in like different productions. Ooh, it got loud. But then I got cast in the play called The Gift Horse, and it was about a 20-year-old kid who winds up playing for the New York Philharmonic's second chair. So they were like, and you had to like really know how to do theater, had to really speak and do monologues. But she also played the cello. So my manager was like, "You got to go do this role. Nobody." She was black. They're like, "You're the only person who could do this. You have to go do this." So I did. I auditioned for it. I got it. And then they were like, "Oh, and by the way, you have to not use a stand." Now, I've never played the cello without sheet music or a stand. Even Yo-Yo Ma uses sheet music. He doesn't improvise. So it was like, I don't know how to do this, so I had to learn how to basically play all over again. And it was awesome. And I got written up in all these, I got a lot of press, and it was painful. But after I did that, had I not done that play, I don't know that I would have been able to really see how to incorporate it in my act. But because I had to do that, by the time it was time for me to do it in my act, it was like, oh, I know how to do this. And then I just expanded. What I'm doing now is way more than I ever did when growing up. Like singing with it, rap. I wrote those songs, wrote the music to those songs. So it's like for My Man Is a Jamaican. I wrote that music, and then we recorded that. We wrote the lyrics to that. So it was just this was really fun stuff.
Would you have to bring? I'd imagine that there are logistics problems this presents. You have to have a stool of a certain height.
I can play on. I've taught myself to play literally on anything I can sit on. No matter what height it is, I can adjust it. But playing on a high stool is my preference. that is not the proper form for a cello or a cellist. It's like really bad, but I prefer to be higher than the audience, so I like it a little bit high. So I've just kind of taught myself how to play almost like a bass player in a sense, and I'm almost upright.
And there's always been a stigma for the guitar guy in comedy. Does that carry over to the cello lady?
It's interesting. I think in the beginning when people don't know your act well, or if they see you coming, they're like, oh, that. I mean, they hate me. Most people hate musical comedy, especially stand-up comedians. When they see a musical comedian, they're like, oh God, they're gonna play these songs, it's gonna be annoying. But I have to say, I've been really embraced by clubs and all rooms alike. So, like, I've done the Meltdown show with Jonah and Kumal, but I've also done, the Kansas City Improv. And so I feel like people are like, at first they're like, what is this? But then by the end, I feel like I have them like eating out of my hands, and it's amazing.
Well, you do pre-recorded tracks as well. Did that come first? Were you doing that first and then incorporated the cello? Did you want to be
No. You mean for my songs?
Yeah.
Actually, it's the other way around. I wrote them on the cello first and then recorded them. Okay. So people, if they saw me do like these songs, first I start a cappella because I have to hear the jokes. So there's no music, there's nothing. It's just pure the joke. Do the jokes land? Once you know the jokes land, then I write the music, and then I perform it live, and then we record it because we have a video for this song. Then we record it, and then by the time you see it now, it's been 2 years it took to do that.
But when you're writing something, do you have in mind, oh, this would be funny if I had a cello part to it? How do you everything I write has a cello part, and it starts with a cello part. Like my man is Jamaican, it goes boom. Bum 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 bum. It started with that beat on the cello. That's how that song started. Everything else comes after that. It always starts with the bass line with the cello. Every single song I do. But do you do just stand up without the cello if you're doing a 40-minute set?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't do all the cello. It's like, I guess people say my act is kind of like Zach Galifianakis' act, and when I saw his Purple Onion act, I was like, oh, yeah, it kind of is, because I do regular stand up. And I'm doing cello stuff, and I'm rapping, so I'm like kind of all over the map, in that sense.
Does that literally give you a hook to have a song? You could put something out on YouTube and could catch on a little bit.
Yeah.
Easier than just a stand-up riff.
I think so. It also depends on your stand-up. Like there are people who have like the get her done. Like it depends on if you have like those catchphrases. That can also work in the same way that I think musical comedy can work. But yeah, I think like especially the last song, because it's a really long song. By the end, they've said Nina so many times that when they leave here, they're like, Nina, what? And I'm seeing people singing the song like way after in a restaurant. They're like, I can't get this song out of my head.
Well, I was thinking that was very clever. It's just for people who didn't hear the song. You've got what is it called? I'm the
most famous black cellist you know.
And at the end, you have people a call and response. Nina, I was thinking that's a very good way to get people to remember your name.
Exactly.
Especially if you're doing a set like tonight.
Yes.
Where you're on with 7 or 8 other comics.
And the joke in that was like, people would go see stand-ups and leave and be like, who is that person? Like, we don't know who that person is. But if you go to a play, you get a playbill. Anywhere else, you know who you're going to see. Stand-up's the only art form where you go, you're like, I don't know. There's a bunch of people. They were funny, but we don't know their names. So I was like, it'd be funny if I just make them say my name, like through the hook, and that's how it kind of inspired me to do it.
How does the rhythm of a joke dovetail with the rhythm of a song? It seems like the choice you might make to write a good song might not always be the choice you make to write a good joke.
Ding, ding, ding. You are absolutely correct. I have a producer that I work with, and we co-write together too, and he'll try to write something that he thinks is clever. I'm like, that's not funny. And he's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, no, it's funny if you are singing a regular song, and if that line would be funny for a normal song. For a musical comedy song, that's not funny. Because the thing is, you have to write it like jokes. And what the feedback I've gotten from people is like, oh, you write real jokes. Like, and I think if you write real jokes and then add music, that's how I think of it. I don't think of it like, oh, like, let me make a funny pop, like, I don't know, like a clever song. I'm like, I have to write real jokes the same way I write stand-up. I do it the same way. I don't really change the format. I just add music to one.
Right. I've spoken with different people who write humorous music. I remember interviewing Harry Shearer about Spinal Tap
Oh yeah.
years ago and saying, well, you couldn't approach that and just write bad songs. The songs are actually pretty catchy and pretty good, but also, they've got that weird sophomore thing.
And also too, the like inspiration between the most famous black cellists. I told you I did that play, so my character sits second chair of the New York Philharmonic. So I said, let me do some research and speak to other black cellists who are in Philharmonics, and I couldn't find one. I couldn't find one person to interview. And I'm like, well, where are they? So that's why I made this song, the most famous black cellist you know, because most people don't know any cellist, but they definitely don't know any black cellist.
Has that drawn people out? Have you found any other black cellists since then?
I've found a couple, but it's still like, it's a drought. It's not easy.
Small Facebook
Very
group.
Small.
So what do you have coming up? What can we point people to?
I have a couple of things coming up. I just did Dos Equis commercial with Blake Anderson from Workaholics. And then I have a web series called Model's Diet that I wrote and directed and star in on YouTube.
What is it called again? We might have lost
it. Oh, Model's Diet.
Okay.
And I was just on Shameless, season 8 of Shameless.
Oh, great.
And I have a pilot coming up, but the thing is they didn't pick it up yet, so hopefully we'll see. We'll see.
And you have a website?
I do, NinaDaniels.com, and my Instagram is NinaDaniels.official, and Twitter at NinaDaniels.
Well, thank you for speaking.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
The Women in Comedy Festival has always been progressive about its lineup. It seeks to elevate women in comedy but not to exclude anyone, so there's always been a male contingent on the schedule. I saw Will Martin on the strangest showcase of the week, a show called Rated GNR, so called because it was a mix of clean and blue comedy and featured a Guns N' Roses cover band, Cocaine Tongue, who I have it on good authority are a great bunch of guys. The band played each comic onto the stage and then stopped, except when Will Martin came up. Just as the band was about to cut Sweet Child of Mine, Martin started singing, and he was good, and that's not the only surprise he had in his set. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Will Martin. So your set tonight, just to sort of set the table, the show is called Rated GNR. Mm-hmm. There's a Guns N' Roses cover band that was the backup band for the evening. And they played you on to Sweet Child of Mine. This was the most breakneck set I think I've ever seen, changing from scene from thing to thing.
Yeah, I didn't have a plan, so it just sort of happened.
Right.
Yes. But and don't let me interrupt if you're going to keep scene setting. Make it happen. But
I'll go ahead.
Okay. Laura Severse had a great idea for a show. What a fun show. Guns N' Roses. And I only know like one Guns N' Roses song, but it's Sweet Child of Mine. It's the one. I know it from Guitar Hero and Rock Band that I used to sing. So I realized like 4 minutes in advance of the set, I'm like, I think I could just ask them to play and I will just sing the song.
You nailed it. You got a great voice.
Thank you.
Do you sing?
I don't. Or is this just... I learned how to do like belty rock voice from playing Rock Band and don't use it. So anytime I can, I'm looking for the ops all over the place, but I just never get them.
Did you work it out with them that you were going to keep singing?
No, I didn't.
It did look like they were going to stop.
I should have asked. If I thought of it farther in advance, I would have been like, hey, let me do the first verse into the chorus or something. But I only thought of it right before the set, so I just kind of gave them like a wink and a keep going motion when I got on. And they're professionals. They're great. They kept going.
I know those guys. Cocaine
oh,
Tongue,
my gosh.
They're all in a million other bands.
So
they're
fun.
All great.
Yeah.
And
so yeah,
and
then the guy was like, "All right," and he pointed to the mic, and I was like, "I got you, man. I'm way ahead of you."
That would be Chris Harvey, who did backup vocals.
Incredible. And then they just had me on right now for the after party.
Right,
that was a treat.
To play Sweet Child of Mine again.
So fun.
For the breakdown at the end.
So fun.
Okay, so that song ends, and the material that you go into next.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to describe?
Sure. Well, I still did one look-like. I always open with at least one look-like joke, but then I talked mostly for most of the set. It was about the death of my brother, which is not maybe a comedy set. It sounds odd now, Hopefully it was funny. People laughed.
I thought it was great. There was a lot of very uncomfortable humor.
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
Would you care to share a couple of the darker?
I can,
points
yeah.
that you mentioned?
I mean, anytime someone dies, it's fun to just continually reference them dying. That's funny to me. I did not get into comedy to be a death comedian, but then a couple of deaths happened to me, and then now I am. So it was like, it's fun to mention death.
Why do you think that is?
That's a great question. Why is that? Because I think this is such a hack answer, but no one in real life talks about it, and it happens. And I think comedy, I had a friend die in September also, and he always talked about comedy in terms of like creating tension with a setup and then popping it with a punchline. Maybe I shouldn't have clapped into the mic, sorry. But
it's okay, it was below the mic.
Okay, good. Sometimes when I think about jokes, I think about that. And so when you mention death, there's an instant, there's kind of everyone's like, ooh. But then that's good. If you can be funny about it, then it's a good release. Then it's a good pop.
There were a couple of times when the audience pulled back on you a little bit.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the particular
I wish I could too. I'm sure.
Was that all a blur for
I'm
you
sure.
When you just did it? Have you done any of this material?
I've
for
done.
people before?
My brother died about a month ago. I've done that material probably 7 or 8 times.
Okay.
So, which I would consider very, very a very low number. You know, comedians do jokes like this is not for you, you know, but
When
like.
do you do this set? It's not necessarily your type 5.
It's not a type 5. I've gotten bar shows where I get on their side enough that they're up for it. It's definitely not a get in and out kind of thing. I probably went a little over my time, to be honest, but they usually don't light you if you're grieving, so they just kind of.
Well, your setup was singing "Sweet Child of Mine," and then in here, that's your setup. That's your get them on your side thing.
Yeah, I felt like with the opportunity, I feel like they would go with it because they were a great crowd. They were so fun, and they were into the setting. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sing this song, and hopefully they'll like me enough by the end of this song to follow me. And then anytime, there was a couple times where I did sort of lose folks, or I lost like half of the folks, which is enough. And then as long as you reference it, it's fine. If you've been funny previously on stage and you say a joke that isn't funny, you could just be like, oh, y'all didn't like that. And then it's enough. Again, it's a release. It's like, ooh, I didn't like that, and then to release it.
Well,
I don't know.
You had the whole bit about the music therapist.
Yes. So I talked about how my brother, I got the call about my brother, and I shaved my and then I don't know what I could say. It's about okay, cool. Shave my balls, and no,
with an M in the beginning.
With a yep, and and
as if you were a cat's killer.
Balls.
And you got a up at the end.
So that was one.
That's your catchphrase.
Which is a true. Oh no, you're right. Oh, now it has to be. Thank you. So that was the first thing, which is true. I got the call. I was going to fly to Cleveland, and I was like, you know what? If I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it for like a long time if this goes south. So I just did it. You know? I was like, I'm going to be too depressed and sad and I won't, and it was overdue. Anyway, not to be crass.
It'll just make you more depressed.
Exactly. If you look down and you're unkempt, no thanks.
No brother and unkempt.
Truly, life's two tragedies. Death and an unkempt genital. That's the worst.
I'm sorry, you obviously set it up enough so that I'm joking with you now.
Which is
about
good.
It, I don't
mind. It's lovely. People have said so then I did a joke about emojis within condolence texting, and a lot of folks texted. That was so lovely. But like I said on stage, not the energy sometimes to respond, so I'll just send back the heart emoji. And then one time I sent the cowboy emoji, smiley cowboy, by accident. And a lot of people have texted me the smiley cowboy or referenced it later in a show, and I'd love that. Sometimes they feel bad about it. I'm like, no, that's such a treat. Anytime a comic references a joke, it's high praise.
So that wasn't the only breakneck turn this set took. The end of your set, where you talked about growing up Christian, you briefly said that.
Yes.
And losing your virginity.
Yes.
The oddity of that, the things that people So if we're going to go through the beats.
Sure.
Start out with Sweet Child of Mine.
Yes.
Go to Your Brother Dying. And then Losing Your Virginity Late Because You Grew Up Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three tent poles of your set.
And when you say it, it doesn't sound great. When you say it like that, I think back and I'm like, ooh, maybe that didn't go as well as it felt. But no, you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly what it was.
I think it worked because no one expected any of that. It's like you hit them in the face with a shovel 3 times.
My goal is always for my comedy to be described as physical assault with a shovel. So that's perfect.
Yes,
that'll
be in the quote.
That's so
the poster
funny.
For your one-man show.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to make audiences as comfortable as possible, but right now I don't care very much. So if I think something is funny, I'll just do it. Which is not to say that seems obnoxious to say, but that's the case right now.
And again, you didn't plan for these to be.
I mean, I knew. I was like, I think if I get them on my side quick, I'll go into the brother chunk. And I usually end on losing my virginity because people dig that. People like, it's a comedy show. People like talking about sex. So
that is true. The story about
it is
late.
All true. Yes, quite
not
late.
Last week.
Not last week. If you want to track the beats of my life, losing my virginity before my brother dying. Yes,
okay.
It's a little while ago. It's
at least you had that.
Recent. You're right. At least I have that. That's what I've been holding on to. So, yeah. I mean, I usually end that way. It is a sharp turn. The thing that I didn't know was going to happen tonight is singing Sweet Child of Mine, and that was a treat. That was really fun.
And where can people look for more of your stuff or what you do?
I've been tweeting about when I cry pretty consistently for about a month. I'm at Mr. Will Martin on Twitter. I think it's so funny. Some of them bomb, and that feels bad. But some of them, I'm a big crier. I'm big. I was pro crying before this, and now I'm like, I'm into it. I'm in deep. And then I'm also, you can follow me on Instagram at childlessfundad on Instagram. Which is, I don't know. I think I'm better at Instagram than Twitter. But anything, if you choose to follow me, that's very sweet.
Oh, right. The lookalike was. Said you look like
an imaginary dad.
An imaginary dad that
yes.
an orphan wished.
I didn't even get into age stuff. I'm 25 years old. People think I'm like 35. People guess a full decade up. But, yep, there you go. So, that's where you can find me online. I'm on Facebook, too, Will Martin. It'd be nice to see you. I don't know. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
One of the strongest shows I saw all week was in the NBC Comedy Spotlight series. Every comic killed on that show, including Tina Frimmel, a comic from Vermont. I was surprised to learn she's only been doing comedy for a couple of years, really only since she discovered what stand-up comedy was. She had a great, smart set, and we spoke about how she found comedy and how she used it to talk about cerebral palsy. You can find out more about her at tinafrimmel.com, and that's F-R-I-M-L.
I know, I hate mingling in loud rooms. I can never talk to hear people. It's crazy.
I wind up hoarse by the end of
the me too. I'm like, ooh. Yeah.
So how long have you been doing comedy?
I've only been doing it about a year and 4 months. Yeah.
How have you? It seems like you've come fairly far in that time. You had a great set on the NBC showcase just now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's kind of been a wild, rampant ride. I'm from Vermont. Mm-hmm. I began comedy in Vermont and taking a stand-up course actually at the Vermont Comedy Club. And I graduated from that and quickly got booked on shows, and it just kind of accelerated. And within a year, I was headlining shows in Vermont and all this. I would have never ever thought I would be doing this.
Well, what made you start in the first place? What made you take the class?
Well, Vermont is so close to Montreal, being the the Just for Laughs festival. And the other year, a good friend of mine and I went up there and saw a comedy show, and it blew me away. I'd always...
Was it your first comedy show?
Yeah.
What, you said 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I'd always been a theater kid and a songwriter, and I love live entertainment. It never even occurred to me, comedy, like live comedy. And I've always had a big sense of humor, and it just, something clicked. And I was like, what?
Who did you see on the show?
Alan Carr. I think he's a British comic. People don't really know him here, but I think he's big in Britain. We actually didn't really know him that well, but he blew me away. There were like tears streaming down my face.
So had you seen stand-up comedy specials or listened to stand-up comedy albums?
Well, my brother grew up being really into comedy, really into, Carlin and Eric Andre and stuff like that. And so I've always been aware of it, but it never really clicked. I think I was so in love with music and theater that it didn't stick until I myself went out and saw it live. And the emotions of like laughing until I was crying, and that it really got to me, and I realized why comedy is so powerful. Yeah.
But did you write funny songs? Was there a sense of humor?
No, actually, I wrote really haunting minor chord songs. I think it's a bit of a contrast. I think, I love really sad music, really kind of unsettling. And comedy was so different. And I've always been kind of an upbeat person. So yeah, I think it's a weird kind of juxtaposition that really, at the end of the day, really shows kind of who I am. Like, writing minor chord songs and yet making a whole room of 100 people laugh.
I think they go together in a certain way. I'm a fan of a lot of music that other people call depressing that I find quite inspirational.
Yeah.
A lot of Americana and country influence stuff that to somebody who's not listening just sounds like defeat, but to me sounds like I'm still here.
I think I'm really a fan of just extreme emotions. I mean, like just things that stay with you. I've always loved, whether that be in a haunting, like sad or creepy way, or a very kind of happy and like I kind of love changing people's mood, having that like weird control, and
You're not the first comedian to say that they enjoy control.
That
aspect of comedy.
And another thing that I think I really, to be very candid, I love comedy because I've always had trouble having people listen to me, like in crowded rooms or in conversations. I mean, both literally and figuratively, like, but when I'm right there holding a mic and saying it, and people are really appreciating and hearing what I'm saying. Well, I think yesterday in the festival, I heard someone say a thing that really rung true to me, which was, even if I bomb, and that, like, they're not laughing, they're still listening, they're still keyed in, and I love that. Like, you cannot lose. I guess.
Right, you said that in that even if I bomb, I think that I'm inspirational.
Yeah, I've got a joke, me being disabled. I have a joke, about how everything I do is an inspiration,
Right.
and that's why I can go up and do comedy so confidently. I know that even if I bomb, it's still like a TED Talk.
Right.
So, yeah.
You had said that I'm trying to remember the exact line of it. I'll have to edit this. It just flew out of my head the second I was going to ask. It's like when you have something right here and then it dodges over the periphery. Oh, you mentioned a couple minutes ago you had the trouble communicating.
Yeah.
Having people hear you. Was that because of the disability, or is it something else?
Yeah, kind of. I think so. Like, I've always I've always been like a very outgoing person who loved to meet new people, but a lot like tonight, a lot of times when you're trying to meet new people, you're in a very loud room or you're in a big group of people who are all kind of competing for airtime, you know, and me being kind of having to really articulate with the way I speak, and also that I speak more slowly. I always kind of grew up being a bit, like, people would, talk over me without trying to, and just, I couldn't really get my voice in there. And yet with stand-up, I can, literally, like, I'm there with a mic, and
the wedding singer thing.
I have a microphone. Yeah, exactly. Like, it might sound a bit petty, but really, like, it's a relief after years of trying to find my voice socially, to get to go onto a platform and just say kind of what I've always been thinking and how people appreciate it. It's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Was that first time going on stage must have been somewhat terrifying for you?
Terrifying, yes.
And did you think going up, I've got to address my disability immediately? For a couple of reasons. Even any comedian, the first joke that they teach you to tell in any of those courses is, make fun of what you look like, so people know you're self-aware, and then you can have a platform to build off of.
Yeah.
So, did you experience that? Did you felt like you had to go up there and sort of say, "Hey, this is the way I am," to sort of comfort people?
The first time I ever did stand-up was at an open mic, and I said nothing about being disabled. I talked about, like, fairies and poop and like the weirdest
all those
stuff.
hack things.
Yeah, all the hack things. And I bombed. Like, I just, no one laughed. No one, part of the reason was I had no mic skills, so I was holding the microphone, like, way far away, so no one could hear me anyway, but, it just did not connect, and then, right after that, with my tail kind of between my legs, I went and I signed up for a class, a stand-up class, And in the very first week of that, we had to come in with a brand new 5. And I came in, and the very first joke that I said was, Tina, I'm disabled, but don't worry, you're going to be okay. And it was like laughter broke in the, like it was the sun like breaking tension of laughter that really struck me. I'll never forget that moment, where it was not just natural laughter, it was really like they've been holding in, like what's happening with, like, is she disabled, is she drunk, like what's happening.
That you had with the
yeah,
going to the bar to fit in.
Yeah, and so after that I kind of realized, oh, you really have to kind of say it before they think it. And
well, to give permission, right? Like,
yeah.
Is that the way you feel like they don't know whether they can laugh at you unless you can sort of give them the permission to do that?
Yeah, and the kind of funny thing about that opening joke, the whole "Hi, I'm disabled and you're going to be okay," that kind of relates to all aspects of my life. Like, no matter where I go, I wish I could just say, yeah, I'm disabled and you're going to be okay. Like, it's okay, we're okay. So in a way, it was not only finding my comedic voice, but finding something that I've been subconsciously trying to say for years, and finally having permission to openly talk about being disabled without it being tragic or awkward, or because I always wanted to talk about it, to just get it out there, because I was the one that had to live with it every day, and yet I felt like I could never talk about it until I found the comedy platform where, hey, if I make them laugh and hear me, that, like, they relax and they can actually enjoy hearing what it's like to be me. And yeah, because I enjoy being me. So, it was
well, there's no one else you can be, so that's good.
Exactly. So, and that was the thing, like, I know that when I went to college, I took, like, a memoir class, and I wrote all about being disabled in a very tragic, kind of, completely dramatic way. And, people loved it, and I got an A on it and whatever, and that was cool, but I remember feeling like, yeah, but I wrote a tragic story, but I'm not a tragedy. And I think that was, like, kind of the seeds were planted. And a year after that, I went to Montreal.
So. And now you've just done a show for NBC Scouts, and I have to say, you seemed very, very confident on stage.
Good, because I've been terrified for the last week.
Of this particular show tonight?
Yep. Yeah, I've never done anything quite like this that had a major network name on it, or I've only done like little Vermont shows, and it's definitely the most kind of notable show that I've done in my career so far, and that is what I got out there, and it was so fun, and the room was so good that it was just that kind of build up, and then, oh, wait a second, like, okay, hi guys.
So now you've gone from, in 2 years, seeing your first stand-up comedy show to thinking about moving to a bigger city to pursue.
I know, who would have thought, right? Yeah, I know. If you would have told me 3 years ago that I'm doing comedy, I would have been completely shocked. Completely. Like, what comedy? Like, what are you talking about?
Well, where can people find more about you and about your comedy?
I have a website at Tina Friml, and that's TINAFRIML.com. And also I am on YouTube. So I believe just one really cool set on YouTube that I always direct people to. And that gives you a really cool preview of kind of the style of what I do. But yeah, mainly my site.
Well, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Dawn Smith used to work on political ad campaigns. Now she produces a web series making fun of them. After a particularly harsh 2016 political season, Smith decided to start something new, so she created, wrote, and directed and co-produced Paid For By, a web series starring Kelly McFarland and Tony V. It's a look at a team of political ad producers as they try to make their candidate look good at just about any cost. The series is making its way around film and comedy festivals at the moment and will eventually make its way to the web. Smith has 2 episodes done and is looking to find funding to finish up the rest of the series, so if you hear this and you're inclined to help, you can find out how at paidforby.com. This is Dawn Smith.
Testing.
So you are the writer and director?
Yes, I'm the writer, director, and co-producer of Paid For By.
And you used to work on political commercials. That was your main job for a while.
That's right. So I started working on political commercials in 2014. I lived in Chicago at the time, and I worked at David Axelrod's production company, which was called AKPD Message and Media. Axelrod was actually at the White House by the time I got the job. So the name changed from Axelrod and Associates to AKPD Message and Media. We still occasionally did a shoot for him here or there, but we basically were doing issue ads for different campaigns and Democratic messaging.
What kinds of ads were you doing? What were the types of issues and things you were doing?
We did things from get out the vote to ads that were negatives, the whole gamut of ads, really, that a political campaign will run, from positives, talking about their family, their background, making them seem, like a person that you want to vote for, to attack ads, things that none of us really enjoy.
But you still have to do it.
But you still have to do it because it's your job, and that's how campaigns are run. And that was really something that I figured as I kept working. That was kind of interesting to talk about how a good person working in politics has to do, you have to do these ethical gymnastics to continue your job. And
that led you to Paid For By, which is based on your experiences.
Exactly, yes, because as a person working towards a Democrat type issue, I feel like I am working to make the world a better place. I am wanting, I believe in this. I feel like I'm a good person. But then I'm put into a situation where I'm not proud of this ad that we're producing. And so what are the kind of mental gymnastics that good people do to continue working in politics, which really came to a head for me in the 2016 campaign. That was really where I was like, I need to stop doing this for a little while, take a step back, and process it. And that process really was writing about it.
And writing this series was processing it?
Exactly. Yep. Right after the 2016 campaign was over, and I saw the results of the election were very disappointing. I stopped doing political producing for a while, and I just started writing. And this is how Paid For By came about. It was really just my kind of way to process everything.
And Paid For By is about a team that creates these sorts of ads, and at the center of it, the two people played by Kelly McFarland and Tony V.
Yep.
Essentially creating these ads sort of on the spot. What I've seen so far, it seems a lot more improvised. It seems like improvised calculation seems to be the way to put what I saw today for episode 2.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it really is. So it's not like exactly true to life and how campaigns are really run, but it kind of takes things that are a part of this world, and it's a satirical thing, so it makes it a little more exaggerated and crazy. But it really is about like what happens when money is introduced to the equation, like in episode 1, where a lobby suddenly donates to a campaign and changes the message. In episode 2, it really is about like, what do people like on camera? Are they comfortable with a certain race or gender of person explaining things to them? And if when someone doesn't look the way they need to look, what happens?
Right. What episode 2 I saw today, it was about them filming a commercial with a black female business owner who slowly got cut out of the picture.
Exactly, yeah.
For a white guy.
Yeah.
To step up.
Right.
And you said it's not necessarily true to life, but do you see things like that happening? Is that... Definitely.
I think in the ad world, there's always conversations about who are we putting in this ad and why. And a lot of times with political commercials and other commercials, there's the conversation of what race is this person, what gender is this person, what do we want them to look like, what can they wear, what should they not wear, what do we want to stay away from. Do we want them to look like they're from a certain religion or a certain race? These are all conversations that definitely happen in the ad making world.
And you've got to you find somebody for their story to talk on camera because it's inspiring, and then try to shape that story sometimes against the will of the person.
Right, exactly. It really comes down to like, what demographic are our voters, and how are we going to convince them that this is the best candidate for them? And so if you're trying to pander to a largely white evangelical audience, you're going to want someone in the ad who looks like a white evangelical. So it really is trying to, like, in a very jokey way, talk about some of the systemic problems in our nation, and how can we contribute to that problem or be a part of a solution.
So what made you jump to comedy and not documentary? When these things were going on, were you taking note, oh, that's funny, this is funny?
Yeah.
This would make a great comedy if I ever did something?
Yeah, I think that commercial production is really hilarious, and the things that happen during a shoot are funny. Like, there are things that you can't control, that you don't predict will happen, and all of a sudden something crazy happens and it throws off the message of the ad, and it really is funny. And also I think I like to laugh, because otherwise I just would be so depressed.
The line between politics and comedy is getting increasingly blurred.
Exactly,
as time goes on.
Yeah, and it really is. Politics is so crazy right now. I think it would be really hard for me to deal with it in a documentary style or in a drama, just because I need to be able to laugh about it. So that's just kind of what I prefer to do, is process things through comedy.
And now this is a series. How many episodes?
So we've produced 2 episodes. We'd like to be able to shoot the entire season, which would be 6 episodes. So we're in the process of raising funds, trying to find a partner in a production company in Boston or production houses who are interested in signing on. So that's kind of our next step.
And where can people find to donate?
So we are putting together an online fundraising campaign right now, and we should be releasing that in about a week or two. So we'll be posting that to our www.paidforby.com website. We'll also stick that link online on Twitter and Facebook. And
And what the idea is that these will go to festivals, and once it's made, you will post them online.
Exactly.
Later this summer?
Yeah, we're hoping later this summer. It just really depends on how quickly we get the funds so that we can shoot the episodes and edit them and complete them.
Now, you mentioned you wanted to stop doing this for a little while and you went into comedy. Now that you've done this, is this what you want to do? Could you go back to producing campaign ads now that you put this out there?
I think it would depend on who I was producing the campaign ads for. There are some great candidates that I would absolutely love to do ads for. Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, or these different people who, if they gave me a call, I would be there in a heartbeat.
Well, Jimmy Dingell's running for lieutenant governor of Massachusetts.
Right.
Get on. If you wanted to get the, trying not to use the word synergy.
Right,
here,
right.
I can't think of another word that's that.
Right.
Terrible corporate speak.
I mean, ideally, what I would love to do is just be paid to write comedy. That's what I would love. If I could be paid to write and direct comedy, that's what I would do.
So you can go to paidforby.com and find out more information.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, thank you very much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time.
An arrow to the head isn't always a trick.
Thanks again to everyone at the Women in Comedy Festival for letting me run around between shows, and specifically to Nina Daniels, Will Martin, Tina Frimmel, and Don Smith for taking the time to speak with me. You can find out more about the Women in Comedy Festival and their ongoing podcasts and columns at WICF.com. And if you like this episode, please consider giving the Department of Tangents a rating or review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help. And check departmentoftangents.com for galleries, videos, and all sorts of other posts. This week's featured track comes to us from wife and husband team The Smoking Flowers. It's called Young and Brave, and it's the first single from their upcoming album Let's Die Together, out June 8th. If you go to the Department of Tangents site on Monday morning, you'll get to see the video in which they play some of their favorite musicians, from Johnny and June to John and Yoko to all four Ramones. You'll get to see the video and read a short email interview with the band. Check that out Monday morning. And now, here's The Smoking Flowers with Young and Brave.
Straight for your heart. It's just running Neil Young.